Hello, good evening, and welcome to Prog Chattery 777. Well, today we are talking about the Buggles and Video Killed the Radio Star. Just kidding, obviously not. We are talking about Yes, and we're talking about the year 1980 with the release of Drama, which is obviously quite a controversial album. This album does not feature John Anderson. This album features two members of the Buggles. We get Trevor Horn on lead vocals, replacing John Anderson for this album, and the other new guy is Jeff Downes, who would end up having quite a long career with Yes. This was a very good career moment for him. And the rest of the band is augmented by the classic guys. We get Chris Squire on bass, Steve Howe on guitar, and Alan White on the drums. So yeah, a lot has changed with the band, obviously with the new lineup. And yeah, obviously it's worth noting. Yes they were never really a stable band. They had already gone through several lineup changes before in the 70s. They had a couple of different keyboard players. Bill Bruford left. So there was a few different lineup configurations that had happened. But replacing a lead singer is never an easy task. Especially if your lead singer is John Anderson, who's got a very distinctive voice and lends a very distinctive style to a very distinctive sound. The reason that John Anderson and Rick Wakeman left, basically after Tornado, they'd wanted to make a new album. They were keen to make a new album, but they were kind of looking to make something folkier, a little more acoustic oriented. And the rest of the band, Steve Howe and Chris Squire and Alan White, were looking to go into a heavier direction, which was probably probably a better idea for them, to be honest. But anyway, this basic split between the two guys wanting to do folky stuff and the other guys wanting to do heavy stuff created some tension, and then at the end of the day, the band was fractured, and Chris Squire, Alan White, and Steve Howe went on to collect the Buggles guys. So you get Jeff Downes and Trevor Horn. And get heavy they did. As you can see, obviously we get the return of the Roger Dean cover art. That's a fantastic thing. And I really like this one too. All of the cover art by Roger Dean is fantastic. But this one's just great. Like the puma's there and the mountain, and obviously we get the metallic Yes logo, which is very, very fitting because this is quite a heavy album. And I think this one is actually brilliant. I'll be totally honest with you. I'm going to say this right now. If there's like a trifecta of ultimate Yes albums, absolutely essential Yes albums, I would say you would need to pick up Close to the Edge, Relayer, and Drama. And I know that's a controversial thing because I keep stressing there's no John Anderson on this. How could it be Yes without John Anderson? Of course, in recent times they've been Yes without John Anderson for a while, but this is back in 1980, so it's a bit different. And speaking of 1980, the new guys in the band, and I think the old guys in the band, were probably aware of the changing times. Obviously, like I said, 1980, the punk scene had come and gone. People's tastes were different, and new wave was in full swing, and I think that's what gives this album a lot of its strength, is that there is a great sort of new wave energy, contemporary for the time. This album is a very fresh album. We've got that new wave energy that goes pretty well through all the tracks on here, and like I said, it adds to the sense of adventure. It feels like they're innovating again. Even though they're really not. They're basically just doing a classic Yes album. They're doing all the stuff that's informed from the past, the classic Yes stuff, and they're fusing it with these contemporary sounds, 1980 contemporary, and it makes it so much better than Tornado. Like this is far and away the best album they've done since Relayer, and like I just said, I'd put it as a part of a trifecta of essential Yes albums. It is just fantastic. And Trevor Horn, I have to say, I mean, he went on to become a producer, but he did a fantastic job of, obviously he doesn't sound like John Anderson. He's got a different tone to his voice. There's a different, inflection to his voice, but the way he sings really suits Yes, and it really suits this album. Which, like I said, even though it's got these kind of 1980 modern sound to it, it's got that. It is also very identifiably classic Yes. So yeah, like I said, I'm ranting about it, so that means we should talk about the tracks. Side 1 opens with Machine Messiah, which has possibly some of the heaviest stuff Yes had ever done, certainly up to this point. I haven't heard all the albums as we go into the 80s and 90s. I'm bad for that. So there may be heavier stuff than this, than Machine Messiah, but I'd be surprised because it really rocks this one. The intro is just got so much menace and dread to it. Steve Howe with that super distorted guitar. It's very metal. And we get the real big sludgy theme. Boom, dong, 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 dong. It's absolutely classic stuff. And it all winds in quite seamlessly into, and it settles into this nice kind of shuffle, this kind of bouncy shuffle beat. And we're introduced to Horn's vocals, and he delivers a fantastic performance. And then there's some nice acoustic guitar bits, and it gets really, really bright. There's a great contrast in Machine Messiah between the bright, happy shuffle bits and the really, really heavy, slow, dirgy riffs. And so that's fantastic. That's a quintessential Yes thing to have that contrast. I just have to say, I'm going to mention Dream Theater again. Machine Messiah is like an essential Dream Theater song 10 years before Dream Theater were like established on the scene. They owe so much to Yes, and I think so much to this album in particular. I think you could argue Machine Messiah, it could be one of the first examples of progressive metal if you're going to talk in those technical genre terms. It is really, really great. And I guess the really slow part too, where we get just the strum guitar bits. Machine Messiah, take me. That's really, really good. And it's there's a maturity to it. Like I said, I think Going for the One's probably the maturity album, and the maturity is so well stated on here. I think the arrangement on Machine Messiah is probably better than some of the stuff on Close to the Edge, even like a Siberian Katru. There's an awful lot of stuff going on with Machine Messiah, but it's so expertly arranged and intelligently arranged, and so it goes through all these changes and it winds through them just seamlessly. And it never, even though there's some dramatic changes, you're never totally jolted. You feel like you're still with the song. The song carries you with it, which is an essential thing if you're writing, if you're gonna write a 10-minute piece. So there you go. Then we get to track 2, which is White Car. And I really love this. It's just a minute and a half. It's a really short little piece. We get some kind of stately, classically inspired music, and then we get a kind of a tense, creepy little verse that pops up, and then it kind of wraps up just as quickly as it comes in. But the music to it is really, really great. I was thinking about what I was going to say about it. It could be film music, but then I heard it earlier and I thought, this is almost like video game music, like the menu of a video game from GameCube era or PlayStation era. Maybe, I don't know. I know a lot of those video game developers were big prog rock fans. The people that composed all the music for Mario and Zelda and all that. I've got it on pretty good authority. The internet says that they were fans. Pretty good authority. But yeah, White Car is fantastic, and like I said, that little instrumental, that classical kind of intro, it's lovely music, and like I said, it reminds me of like a main menu from a video game or like a film score or something, like a sci-fi film score, which is great. That leads us to track 3, which closes side 1 of the album. We get Does It Really Happen? And it is a phenomenal song. A great example of Chris Squire. Chris Squire's on absolute fire with this. I love that syncopated bass line. We get those big jabs with the drums and the guitar and that, and it winds into a really, really great song. And we can hear that kind of new wave influence on this one particularly, I think. Just that main melody. Great melody, but it has that 1980 new wave kind of a feel to it, which is great. Again, it shows that they're willing to take on the contemporary sound of the time, which is what should be expected of a creative band like Yes. I've got great memories of Does It Really Happen as well, because again, when I was learning my craft as a drummer, that was one of the first prog songs, classic prog songs that I learned, and I learned it note for note, and I could play everything that Alan White played on it, and I thought I was a boss, because there's some tricky timings in there. There's a lot of weird switch ups and whatnot. But it is there's a great accessibility to it. It's got there's a good hook to it, and yeah, it's very intelligently arranged, identifiably Yes. You'd almost call it a more sophisticated roundabout. The bass line is anyway. But yeah, great stuff. We flip the album over. We go to side 2, and it opens with Into the Lens. I am a camera. Camera. And this is the other kind of extended song. This is like 8.5 minutes, something like that. And this is, I think, we really hear again that new wave thing. And like I said, that new wave thing is a thread that runs continuously throughout the album. But on this album, on this particular song, Into the Lens, it's interesting because we get those classic Yes arrangements, those complex arrangements, the time changes, the mood changes, what have you, all those Yes staples, but it still has that contemporary sound, or then contemporary sound, which is great. The intro is really, really good. I love that. Great rhythm, and I remember that was one when I was learning my craft. That it's not so bad now, but I remember that one always stumped me. It's got a weird time to it, and you get there's all kinds of it winds its way through all kinds of different sections, and it's quite frantic. It's got lots of energy to it, but again, very intelligently arranged. And even though it's 8.5 minutes long, the journey it takes you on is seamless. And all those changes come out as effortless. And fantastic stuff. We move on to the next song, Run Through the Light. That's the one. This one is probably, for me, the weaker one on the album, but it's still good. Probably a little bit more simple, a little simpler than some of the other stuff, but again, that's not a bad thing. I'm not against simple music by any means at all. But yeah, it doesn't quite do it for me the way some of the other songs do. But it's only 4 minutes long. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's got that peppy contemporary sound that does with the other stuff on the album, and it's got that energy. It's got that heaviness to it as well, which. It's all good. It all contributes to the goodness. And then the album winds up with Tempus Fugit, which is, again, one of my favorite Yes songs, actually. It could almost be a theme song for Yes. It could be like their title song. The way the verses always finish up, what are your answer to yes? Oh, and the band is just so tight. I mean, even though it's essentially a fresh band, with the new singer, new keyboardist, they're just so tight. That rhythm section. Again, Chris Squire. I mean, he's so important to the Yes sound. And yeah, he's just on absolute fire. And Alan White is doing a fantastic job keeping up with him. And it's classic. It's a classic bit of Yes. It's only about 5 minutes long, so I mean, it's not typical of the classic period, but. It's got the sound. It has the Yes sound to it, and it rocks. That's the best Yes rocks, and pretty well all the songs on this album do. So yeah, that brings us to the end. Sadly enough, this lineup didn't carry on. They toured the album, and I think there was a mixed response because, again, very difficult for a band to go out and replace their lead singer. It's one of those impossibly difficult tasks to do. And I think Trevor Horn found it a bit difficult to sing some of the earlier stuff because, again, John Anderson, very distinctive vocalist. He's a very high vocalist, John Anderson. And I think Trevor Horn found that difficult, as anyone would. And maybe it was the response that they got, but for one reason or another, the band fell apart, and Yes was officially disbanded. And they were only disbanded for about 3 years because 3 years later, 4 former Yes members got together with a guy named Trevor Rabin and made an album called 90125, which I might talk about, but I'll leave that up to you guys. How does that sound? So this is concluding my Yes video right now. I'm gonna stop it at drama. But as soon as I get a comment on this video that says, I want to hear you talk about 90125, or 90125, whatever you prefer, then I will do that album. I will do that one. Because I do know it fairly well. And who knows, maybe by the time I post this video, I'll have already decided, whatever, I'm going to make that video. So who knows. For now, we'll leave it at, I'm going to stop at drama for now. I think that wraps up, that classic period pretty well. I hope so. Yeah. I hope you enjoyed my Yes chats, if it is indeed the end of them. I'm going to start rambling like a crazy person now, so I'm just going to wrap it up. So that was Yes, that was Drama by Yes. Thank you very much for watching. Send me a subscribe, send me a like, and comment. In fact, comment on this video if you want to hear me talk about 90125, and I will make sure that there is a video of that album posted. So yeah, thanks again for listening, and we will see you all in the future. Take care now. Bye-bye then.